Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Grab your swords, ready your shields, because June is a month of VR melee combat games, be it roguelike or souls-like or unlike anything else. But before we get into the upcoming games of June, let's have a quick look back at the biggest titles of last month. May started with the horror game Propagation Paradise Hotel that landed to a good reception all in all, not great but not bad either. Positive reviews focus on the intense atmosphere, while the negative ones criticize the short playtime and very little interactivity with the environment. Road to VR rated the game with a good 6. Any other publication would call a 6 as average or slightly above average at best. Oh well, quote, "You're not getting the full fat Resident Evil level of scares or production value, especially at a runtime of less than 4 hours. Although Propagation Paradise Hotel manages to offer up some terrifying thrills just the same." End quote. On Steam the game sits at a stronger 86% very positive rating. The charming puzzler Another Fisherman's Tale dropped on May 11th on all the VR platforms. This one got a bit more media attention. The game sits at a strong 77 on OpenCritic. Upload VR recommends it. Quote, "Even if the overall package doesn't always reach the same high bar set by the first game, Inner Space nonetheless presents a worthy sequel in Another Fisherman's Tale. It's a game that successfully shoots for a wider scope, while still experimenting with unique mechanics that engage with virtual reality in exciting new ways." End quote. Steam users liked it even more with an impressive 96% positive, but only from 30 ratings as of now. Maybe $25 are a bit much for a short puzzle adventure like this. The Lemmings-like action puzzler Humanity hit the PlayStation and Steam on May 15th. People really seem to like it. It sits at a mighty 85 on OpenCritic and a 93% very positive on Steam. The game is playable on a flat screen and in VR, so these reviews mainly reflect the quality of the flat game. The word is that the VR implementation is alright, but does not really add anything substantial to the formula. The VR Grid scored it a 7.5, quote, "VR doesn't make this game substantially better, but it doesn't hurt it in any way. So for those that are looking to put their brains to task and are looking for a more passive VR title, this delivers a solid hybrid puzzle experience." End quote. Firmament, a new adventure game by the creators of the original Myst, released on May 18th only on Steam to a mixed reception. There was very little media coverage to begin with, even for the flat version of the game. General consensus is that this is a very pretty game that unfortunately does not manage to live up to the studio's legacy. Road to VR gave it another good 6.5. Quote, "Firmament offers up another substantial slice of patently difficult puzzling that fits right in line with Cyan World's other hit titles. Although its VR implementations feel like an afterthought. It's undeniably a good and beautiful game, but less so across the board when played in VR." End quote. On Steam it sits at a similar score, a mixed 65%. This one is more for the nostalgia. It's a very outdated formula, but if you played and loved Myst back in the day, I guess you could find some enjoyment in Firmament. On May 25th, the Hello Neighbor VR spin-off Search and Rescue dropped on Steam and for the PSVR 2. Next to no media coverage for this one, the VR Grid gave it a spin though. They were no fans and gave it an alright 6.5 vote. There's enjoyment to be had for sure, but it's just as annoying, and I expect people who have never played this franchise to wonder what the fuss was all about in the first place. End quote. On Steam the game sits at a very similar 67% mixed rating. We've got a bit of catching up to do this month. There are some May releases that we missed in the last episode. X8 is a 5v5 hero shooter with a bomb diffusion game mode and a fast time to kill, so it's Valorant, okay? It's a VR native interpretation of Valorant. At launch there are 6 different heroes to choose from, each with its own abilities and an ultimate that are all gesture activated. Between each round you will be able to purchase gear and armor, well, you know the drill. In the trailers they put out, the gameplay looks pretty janky, but the game itself got a pretty decent reception. It's just an early access release, so no critics reviews yet, but on Steam it sits at an 80% positive. That's not bad. Less than 50 ratings though, so the interest for this is rather muted. The developer, Thirdverse, is mainly known for their melee combat game Swords of Gargantua from 2019. They recently maneuvered themselves into a bit of a bad spot with that one as they pulled the game from the stores and shut down all service, leaving it unplayable, a buy-to-play single-player and co-op game. After some serious backlash they backtracked and put the game back up and even enabled offline play, so it's all good now, but still worrying that they figured this would be even remotely acceptable in the first place. But this is about X8. X8 is free to play, in fact the game is not monetized at all for now, I guess that will come later. The game launched on May 18th into early access on Steam and the app lab for the Quest 2.
A virus has escaped from an underground laboratory, rapidly transforming the whole city into a deadly quarantine zone.
Rotten Apple is a zombie shooter with up to 4-player cooperative play. You might say, oh, a co-op zombie shooter, what a novel idea, and I would agree. But still, there are not many VR co-op games on the market, so I'm at least a bit interested. Maybe someday there will be a good one. Rotten Apple takes place in a dilapidated version of New York, as the title so accurately suggests. After the outbreak, the whole of New York City is quarantined. You are on a routine patrol when a distress signal from within the quarantine zone reaches you, and off you go. There will be a narrative storyline, at some point, not for the early access release though. Until that gets added, you will have to make do with a wave mode. I don't see anything here that sets the game apart from other VR zombie shooters, so I guess they will have a hard time staying relevant next to games like After the Fall. Not much to go on for reception of the game so far either. We will have to wait and see how this one develops. Rotten Apple was originally created for VR arcades. The PC version released into early access only on Steam on May 25th.
Now you really pissed me off! Hello there, I'm Anton Mamai. So, you want to hear a story? It might be a bit scary.
Crimen Mercenary Tales, the swashbuckling sword-wielding adventure game. There are 8 epic tales to play through, each told by a unique character. The game has an arcade-style fighting mechanic. It purposefully set itself apart from physics-based combat systems, so there will be no simulated weight to the weapons, for example. This will be a divisive topic, as it was for the studio's previous title Warhammer Age of Sigmar Tempestfall. So you gotta know your preference. If you want to be able to move your weapon as fast as you can move your controllers, this might be a game for you. If you're more used to the blade and sorcery style, realistic feeling physics-based combat, this is probably one to skip. Crimen features a bunch of 17th century weapons and an original Slavic folk soundtrack. The game released only for the Quest 2 on May 25th. Again, very little media coverage for this one. Upload VR did not enjoy it too much. Quote, despite an interesting premise and some enjoyable moments, Crimen ultimately failed to deliver a satisfying and lasting gameplay experience. End quote.
Oh, you're back. Ready to listen?
Cards and Tankards is a social collectible card game, you know, like Hearthstone, except that you not only see the board but your whole surroundings. The game has everything you would expect from the genre, except pay to win mechanics. While you can speed up your card collection with real money, but only to an extent, you will always need at least some in-game currency to buy packs. There are 4 factions, each with unique combat mechanics. You can combine 2 of them in your deck. This is a social game, so there will be other players around in the tavern, but if you're not into that, you can just play against the AI in your private room. That's also perfectly fine. The mechanics are not too complicated. This is much more Hearthstone than Magic the Gathering. The game can be played on a flat screen or in VR, with full crossplay, not only between VR platforms but also between the flat and the VR version. I found the flat version to be a bit clunky, at least compared to something ultra polished like Hearthstone, but in VR it plays great. Cards and Tankards was in early access 2 years now and had its full release on May 25th. It's free to play and available on Steam and the Quest 2. On Steam it currently sits at an impressive 92% positive rating. Battle Talent is a physics-based sword-fighting game with roguelike elements. The game puts you into procedurally generated dungeons to square off against waves of enemies. There are over 80 enemy types with different movesets in the game and over 100 weapons to kill those enemies with. You can find collectibles and discover new weapons hidden inside the dungeons. Between runs you can spend the XP gained in the dungeons on a wide variety of perks to build your character. The game has mod support and an in-game mod browser for potentially unlimited user-generated content. An early access version is available for 2 years now on the App Lab, so there's actually already a sizable collection of mods available. Battle Talent will have its full release on June 1st on Steam and the Quest 2.
Hello, caller. You're live on the stream with me, Forrest Nash.
In Killer Frequency you play as a late-night radio host Forrest Nash. Right as you start your shift, someone calls in with a horrifying discovery. A killer roams the night. It is on you to save the lives of your callers. Explore your studio, gather clues, solve riddles and talk to the local population, including victims and potential suspects and branching dialogue paths. The game will have a cast of fully voiced characters and an 80s soundtrack ranging from classic rock to synthwave tunes. Killer Frequency is developed by Team 17, the developer of the original Worms series. Team 17 are mainly known as a publisher these days, but they still make games, and this is one of them. Killer Frequency will release as a flat game on every platform except mobile on June 1st. There will be a VR version, but only for the Quest 2. So be aware, if you get the game on Steam or the PS5, that will be the flat version. VR only on the Quest, unfortunately.
I told you to...
In No More Rainbows, you are the monster. Beings of infinite happiness have infested the underworld. Bizou and their merry band of minions plan to take over your sanctuary of screams and turn it into a bountiful paradise where cries of pain and torment are replaced by kisses and rainbows. What a nightmare. No More Rainbows is a puzzle platformer with a unique locomotion system. You play as a beast that is mainly arms, so you run and jump through each stage with motion controls only, by flailing your arms around. In the campaign you explore 28 levels in 4 different worlds and experience environmental storytelling and boss battles. Apart from that, there will be a 3v3 PvP mode in 12 different battle arenas. No More Rainbows is scheduled to release on June 1st on Steam and the Quest and Quest 2.
My name is Barbara, but you can call me Bug. I just started a new job at this place called Atari. They've been working on this cool new thing called video games.
Pixel Ripped 1978 is a short installment in a series of nostalgia-inducing games that celebrate the early days of gaming in VR. This one has quite a bit of hype behind it because of an official partnership with Atari, who are also publishing this title. It's quite a genre mix, as this is a game within the game type of situation. It takes place in the old Atari studios. You play as an aspiring game developer who has invented a handy contraption that lets you go into the game. You will jump between different early Atari games, original Atari games by the way, to squash bugs and ultimately fight the evil Cyberlin Lord. If you grew up with Atari, you will find tons of Easter eggs hidden throughout this one. Pixel Ripped 1978 is scheduled to release on June 15th on every VR platform.
Looks like I've got my work cut out for me. Good thing it's 1978 and this technology is on the cutting edge.
What the hell? Bad omen? Whatever. I need to take shelter.
Undead Citadel was first revealed 4 years ago and managed to garner quite a bit of excitement back in the day. For some time after that, the developers have pretty much gone silent, but now they are back with a full release date in tow. Undead Citadel is a melee combat action adventure. In the story mode, you make your way into the Citadel to discover the origins of the Undead Scourge. The game will have a physics-based combat system that prioritizes one-to-one movement with no delay between your real and virtual hands. There are over 60 melee weapons, plus an assortment of bows, crossbows and explosives to do battle with, each with unique characteristics. You can find slow motion, strength or freeze potions to broaden your arsenal. In addition to the story mode, there will be a wave mode with leaderboards and an armory to display your collection of weapons. Undead Citadel is scheduled to release on June 8th on Steam. It will come to other platforms later. There is already a store page for the PSVR 2 version, no date for that one so far. Now to something completely similar. GrimLord is a dark fantasy action RPG. They are not calling it a Souls-like, but it is pretty clear where the game's main influences are. This is a story-driven melee combat action game. Killing enemies will give you currency that you need to craft and customize new weapons. If you die, you will lose it and have to retrieve it. If you have played a Souls-like before, you know the drill. The game has physics-based combat. You need to learn enemy attack patterns to be able to overcome them. There will be hard boss battles, loot to find and shortcuts to unlock. I previewed GrimLord last year. I really liked it. It had a lot of potential, but there was also a lot of work left to do, and I guess that is still the case. GrimLord will release into early access on Steam on June 22nd. The release for other platforms is planned for later this year. We have two delay announcements. The unique puzzle game We Are One that lets you play co-op with yourself was initially announced for last month but got pushed back a teeny tiny bit to June 1st. So by the time you watch this video it should already be out. We Are One is available on the Quest 2 and on Steam. The roguelike shooter Dead Hook, repurposed from Joyway's abandoned Project Outlier, was pushed back the whole month and has a new release date on June 29th only on the Quest 2. Ports. Beat Saber probably needs no introduction. The most popular VR game ever created by the Prague-based studio Beat Games, now completely owned by Meta, is finally available for the PSVR 2. It took them long enough. If you own the PSVR 1 version, you will get the free upgrade, which is nice. Knock is a VR answer to Rocket League, but instead of cars you use bows and arrows to shoot your shots. The game released only on the Quest 2 about a year ago. Since May 25th it is available for the PSVR 2. A PC version is announced but no release date yet. Budget Cuts is a VR classic. This stealth action game originally released in 2018 for PCVR with a sequel a year later. The first game got a PlayStation version in 2020, the second part was PCVR only until today. Budget Cuts Ultimate is both games combined into one package that drops on June 1st for the PSVR 2 and the Quest 2. So what else is there? There was a big PlayStation showcase a couple of days ago. Not much new for the PSVR 2 sadly, but you know, a little bit, more than nothing. We got a new trailer for the Resident Evil 4 VR version that looked sick, no release date yet. We got a release date for the stylish roguelike shooter Synapse, July 4th, so that is something for next month's episode. Two new game announcements. There will be a sequel to the very early VR zombie shooter Arizona Sunshine. Nice to see that the franchise gets a modernization. The game will come late this year on Steam and the PSVR 2. Then there's a sequel to the extremely popular Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted that should hit the PSVR 2 later this year. It is unknown at this point if the game will come to other platforms. The Meta Quest Gaming Showcase will air on June 1st. I will probably make a recap of that in a dedicated video if there's something interesting to talk about. That's it for this month. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon.